today's episode of Holly Weird Paranormal. Built in 1924, the Cecil Hotel was known as a destination for business travelers and tourists. But within 5 years of its opening, the U.S. sank into the Great Depression. Within time, the hotel's neighborhood fell through a rapid decline, calling the neighborhood Skid Row. The hotel has seen up to 16 unnatural deaths and has housed up to 2 serial killers. Is there a curse attracting such negative energy, or an underlying evil connection to these gruesome deaths? What happened on January 31st, 2013 to Elisa Lam? This is the true crime and paranormal aftermath of the Cecil Hotel. Hey guys, welcome to Holly Weird Paranormal. We are your hosts, Tammy Merhab Chavez.
Hello, I'm Bryce Mitchell-Williams.
And welcome to episode 2. So you heard it in the intro. We're going to be talking about the Cecil Hotel.
Yes.
And I mean, trying to come up with a topic for this episode, it was just too overwhelming because the hotel itself is its own entity.
Yes, it really is. I mean, I know last week we talked a lot about American Horror Story.
Yes.
And this week it's sort of got some American Horror Story tie-ins.
Yes.
So this is not an American Horror Story podcast,
No.
but we keep touching on it because it's so juicy.
And I mean, this is why the creators of American Horror Story, they keep on going back to the history of Los Angeles,
Yes.
which is what inspired us to do this podcast.
Yes.
Because there's so much history, not in Hollywood, but also in Los Angeles and
Totally.
everywhere else in California. So let's, I guess,
Yeah.
jump into it.
Yes.
But first up, Bryce, how was your 2018?
Did it. Happy New Year. Yes.
I know. Happy New Year to you all. We were recording on the day after New Year's Day, so probably when this goes up, it's like way past
Yeah,
that.
it's February.
Most likely.
I was good. How was yours?
It was chill. It was very chill. I think
That
when
has been the
you're-
theme. I feel like everyone I've talked to is like, it was really chill this year.
Yeah, I didn't want to do anything. It was just a way to close out such a beast of a year, such a somber
Yes.
year.
I think it's that adage of like out like a lamb because the rest of the year has been such a hellacious hellfire. So less is more, I think.
I agree. Oh, trust me, I agree. But no, it's like when you're also in your mid-30s too, you've already done all the partying, especially being here in LA and living here for the past, oh my God, almost now will be 9 years of living in LA. I moved here in 2009, but then I remember the very beginning.
You're a seasoned veteran now.
I still don't remember a few years of celebrating here. They're a little dismal, but now it's more like, hey, let's go cook dinner, at a friend's house, or have a host a dinner here
Yeah.
in our apartment, and just drink and eat and be merry,
That sounds ideal.
and then go to sleep. And then wake up and have the leftovers and just vegetate on the couch, and that's it.
Yeah, that is. I was talking to my sister who's younger than me, and she was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go out," and she lives in Ohio. And she said, "We're gonna go out. We're gonna like go to this restaurant that we all love, and go to this bar. Like, we're gonna have a really good night." I'm like, yes, generational differences. I'm doing none of those things.
But Ohio always sleeps.
Yes, that is fact. Yeah, so she lives in Columbus, so it is still like a pretty cool place, but it is nice because it's even the busiest time is like a smaller scale, so you can still like get around and maneuver. And LA, man, it's just so expensive on New Year's Eve, and you can't get anywhere. And
know.
The Uber surcharges are out of control. Like,
Yes. A friend of mine last year was charged the surcharge, like the surge, $300
oh no,
at 2 a.m.
and you're drunk, so of course you just say yes.
Yes. She woke up the next day and noticed a humongous charge, and she was thinking, wait, what the fuck? What happened? She was trying to make sure, like, was this a bar charge? No, It says Uber. It says Uber.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a big, big ordeal for her. She eventually got her money back. She was lucky, but it was just unreal. It was
I'm
so
always really
astronomical.
paranoid, and this is just a tiny peek into the neuroses that is just pinging around my head. I'm always afraid when I'm drunk in any kind of like ride sharing, like what if they take a longer route and I'm too drunk to realize it, and they're just like looping around my house And like, how would you know?
Right.
And that's not very rational, but it is such a scary thought to me. Like,
it is, because there are some crazy Uber drivers.
Yeah.
I know that. I've seen them run the lights.
I know.
Have that weird, small talk with you in the car when you're sitting in the back seat and you purposely have your headphones on because you just kind of don't want to talk or associate at that point.
I've had many a life flash before my eyes in an Uber. It's terrifying. I love it. It's great.
Same here. So I guess let's jump into
Yes.
the meat of the story, because we do have a lot to talk about
Yes.
with this place. So first off, to kind of ease you guys in to the history of the area, and especially for you, Bryce, because I was telling you about all the stuff that happened in LA way before the Cecil Hotel was built. And this is for everyone else too, but you have to understand like what we even conversed about in our first episode about Hollywood, how it was a town built on an industry, and there's literally like blood, sweat, and tears, layers, thick layers of broken dreams, and all these energies that are just suppressed and buried in this earth here, and how that just kind of seeps and makes its way out into this, crazy city that we live in. And in the very beginning, Los Angeles in the early 1800s was a settlement place. People from everywhere, from all over the place were coming here. You had Chinese and Dutch immigrants. You had Spanish influence here as well. So in the area of downtown LA, in the early 1800s, we had what is called the Massacre of Chinatown of 1871.
Which is just like the best title.
I read this report in the LA Times months ago, and it was a really great article, and it talked about what happened in 1871, and it kind of correlates with kind of what's going on right now, because this is pretty much what happened, guys. Cliff notes, 1871, downtown LA. It was an area called La Calle de los Negros, and I am not going to translate it because it is very offensive. It's even offensive in Spanish. It just sounds nice, but it really is offensive. In this area were Chinese immigrants. They were residing here, and they were building a life for themselves.
Sure.
They were immigrating here to the States to build a life. They wanted to, get away from their country. They wanted to start anew. And then out of nowhere in October, 500 men, it was a mob of them, of Caucasian men and Spanish men, go into this area and start beating, torturing, and lynching these people. They start lynching the Chinese immigrants.
Oh my God.
So they had recorded a total of 20 deaths on that day of these immigrants. So it was 20 men, Chinese men between the ages of 15 and up. And there's documentation, there's even pictures online if you Google this, and it's very, very hard to even look at these photos. And out of the 500, only 10 were convicted for manslaughter. It's insane. So this was documented as one of the worst lynching in American history. This is the worst massacre in the history of California.
Wow.
So this happened like, I want to say 7 minutes or 10 minutes from where the Cecil Hotel would soon be built.
Oh my God.
And what stands on that area today is Little Mexico. And it's a pueblo that stands in the place where the lynching happened. So at least something positive. Like there's this pueblo, like a church that was built over it. Right next to the church is the Union Station. So you see why the Cecil Hotel was built in the area where it was built, because it was literally a 10 to 15 minute walk from the Union Station. So you have these people traveling in and out of the city. They could come and stay in a hotel like the Cecil. Now, before the Cecil was built, after this massacre happened, we had the bombing of 1910. And this bombing occurred in the opposite direction of where the Cecil was built, literally 7 blocks away from where the Cecil would be built. It was the LA Times building. So 1910, we have riots. We have protests for unionization. And you have these 2 gentlemen that thought, we're going to make a statement. We're going to protest and do the biggest protest. We're going to do a bombing. So let's do a bombing at the LA Times.
Never the right call. That is never the good idea. Yeah.
I know. And it gets worse.
Oh.
It gets really fucked up. So these two guys, they pack a suitcase with 17 sticks of dynamite.
Jeez.
They go around the back of the building. They stick the suitcase somewhere in the bottom level of this building. They do not know. Oop, I got a text. They do not know that at this time, there are 115 people working on the newspaper for the following morning. So there's people working around the clock in this building. And after they had set the suitcase, they also did not know that where they left the suitcase was next to a natural gas line.
Oh, my God.
So the explosion occurs. They're thinking, oh, it's just going to be like something minor. No.
A minor explosion. Just like a little, tiny little explosion.
We're just going to make a little statement.
Just like a little one.
Just a little one. No, it was a massive explosion because the suitcase with all the dynamite exploded next to the natural gas line. It pretty much, deteriorated the whole building.
Oh, my God.
And out of the 115 of the employees working that night, I believe only 20 to 23 were killed. They perished in the bombing. So the men came forward. They felt bad. They didn't know, people were working.
They felt really guilty,
They're like,
guys.
shit, we're trying to make a statement, and we ended up fucking hurting people. We even killed people. All in the name of protesting and all in the name of, rioting for unionization. So they were convicted. They were sent to jail, and they were serving a very, very, very long life sentence because of this.
Wow.
Yeah. And you have all of this stuff occurring, and it's already, creating like a negative atmosphere already. This is like what you described. Like, these are layers that are being built on the grounds of the city already. And now you have this hotel that is being built in between these key points here. So this hotel is built in 1924, and it is built by William Bakes Hanner, who is a hotelier. And Banner's intention for building such a huge structure was to create something for businessmen and tourists to come in and stay, especially since it's conveniently located close to Union Station. So you have this hotel being built in 1924. Then you fast forward to the Great Depression, which our country goes through. So the Great Depression starts in 1929, goes all the way to 1941. It's the biggest blow to the economy of the 20th century. And of course, you have your first suicide in the building in 1931. So at this point, with this history going on, with this occurrence of the Great Depression, this caused the neighborhood where the Cecil Hotel is located to be called Skid Row. It's just a massive decline. So the history of Skid Row, because that's also very important, this history starts in 1930. And the reason why they called it Skid Row is because all these homeless individuals were, coming here and camping. People who had been forgotten by society end up here. And it's just a place where it's just their last resort when they have nothing and they've lost everything. Yeah. So they called it Skid Road in the very beginning because it's to describe the people living there were living off of the skids. They were living on the skids. And then it eventually turned out to be Skid Row. And then you have these people in Skid Row coming into the Cecil, and now they're committing suicide. Like, they're checking in, but they're not checking out.
Well, and it was also, colloquially called the suicide for a long time.
Exactly.
People would, obviously unofficially, but it had this whole reputation for people going to kill themselves. Just, a light suicide building. What? That's crazy that was just what people knew it as.
Yeah. And this building was just absorbing all of this energy now. People were just coming in, and it was already collecting a reputation of this is where to go. Yeah. You got nowhere to go. You want to end your life, come to the Cecil, pretty much. So the Cecil stands at 17 floors, has a total of 700 rooms. And already in 1931, you have its first suicide. And the suicide is It occurred in 1931 on November. A 46-year-old man from Manhattan Beach, W.K. Norton, was reported missing, but not for long, because he was found dead in his room at the Cecil. Apparently, he checked in under a different alias and committed suicide by ingesting capsules filled with poison. So there's the first one. And a lot of people are stating that he really didn't show any signs of depression or anything like that, but another one of his family members even described him saying, no, he, was still trying to recuperate from the Great Depression, but he lost a lot. And this is a result of it. And then we follow through in 1954 with Helen Gurney, who was a middle-aged woman from San Diego who comes to the hotel to commit suicide by jumping from the window of her room on the 7th floor.
Oh,
and
that does not seem high enough.
I know. Instead of plummeting onto the street, she plummets onto the... her body lands on the marquee of the Cecil. And a witness to the frightening incident was a 26-year-old who was so disturbed by the woman's death that he had to be taken to a nearby hospital. And Gurney, who had been staying at the hotel for a week prior to her suicide, was pretty much showing signs that she was depressed. And she was staying in room 704. And that room, for some reason, too, is also being requested by a lot of tourists to this very day because it has a lot of energy, paranormal activity in it. So that's the start of the paranormal activity there.
And that morbid curiosity we all have of just like, you want to be there where it's happening, but oh my goodness.
Exactly. And then soon afterwards, in 1962... this poor man is walking in front of the Cecil Hotel. He's just walking, minding his own business. He's 65 years old. He is walking, and then all of a sudden, he was hit by the body of Pauline Otten, who's a 27-year-old who had jumped from her window of the 9th floor. And as, she's falling to her death, she falls on top of this poor pedestrian. Oh. So she kills herself and then kills him in the middle of her suicide.
Oh, no. Peepaw.
So I know.
Just on his little walk. Oh.
So the passerby was killed instantly. So it's like, now it's proving a point that even walking past the Cecil can be deadly instead of just checking in. So you have that going on, and then you have some good stuff on the next one, which was 1964, right? It was Goldie Osgood?
Yes. So she actually was one of the first live-in residents, whereas these other people were kind of checking in and then committing suicide. She was well known in the hotel. Like, she had been living there, and everyone in this community of hotel knew who she was. So it's this weird sort of reversal where now it's not just people who are passing by or kind of transient. I think that's a big theory, for lack of a better word, of well, these people are in Skid Row, like you were saying, they're transients, they're passing through anyway. Now all of a sudden it's this woman who's been living there, who they all know, who they see, same thing as you were talking about earlier, doesn't show signs of depression, isn't the person that you would expect it to be, quote unquote. And so they then find her in her room, same kind of thing. Haven't seen her for a while. And she had been raped. She had been stabbed. She had been beaten. And then her entire room had been completely ransacked, completely robbed. And so it's this very violent thing for someone that they all know. And my first question, how did they not hear her?
Right.
600-700 rooms, and nobody hears anything. Nobody knew she was missing. It's all of a sudden they just realize, we haven't seen her in a while.
Right.
They open the door, and there's this horror scene. So they actually end up arresting someone. What's his name? Jacques B. Ellinger. And he was initially charged with her murder, and then it's not him. They release him. He had an alibi, and they just unsolved. That was it. There was no other witnesses. There was no other leads. And so it's still technically an unsolved murder for this woman who, people knew. You know what I mean? It's not someone visiting that no one has heard of, no one's seen. They're neighbor, in essence, unsolved murder, which I find terrifying and fascinating. Like, how could that happen in such a populated building? I just don't understand. But so she was the first one. And then, do you want me to talk now about some of the more famous people, or do we want to keep going through the, like, actual suicides?
I feel that with Osgood, it parallels a very famous murder and suicide that, we were talking about earlier, too, Elisa Lam.
Oh, right.
But I don't know if you have any others. Because there's so many.
Well, that's the thing. There's so many. So we can talk a little bit also. So in the 40s, Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, that is all happening. And so you were saying she wasn't staying at the Cecil, but it's the last place she was seen.
Yes.
Again, transient. She was, like, again, probably picking Johns up there at the bar of the Cecil. It was pretty well known for that by that point. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of becomes one of the first, like, media circuses surrounding a death. It's not just that this woman, who was most likely a sex worker, has been killed. It's now, we're naming her. She has a title. It's become so much bigger than just the incident itself. Again, completely unsolved. The media circus becomes so much bigger. So now this reputation has almost taken on a life of its own. I mean, they're associating her to the Cecil, even though that's not where she was technically staying. But it's just this cycle of violence that's happening in and around this hotel.
Yes.
And it starts becoming this media circus, essentially.
You're so right. Yeah, because I feel with her death, and this is just my take on it, and we talked about this too with the Sharon Tate murders.
Yes.
I mean, this was a media circus. They really hyped up the Cecil. And you know that these reporters are going to be doing their homework and research on the hotel. So they're like, oh, well, she was staying at this hotel. Well, she wasn't staying there. She was just, visiting the lobby, picking up, Johns, because at that time, now the hotel was charging by the hour.
Right.
So you had these prostitutes that, this was their working office. This is where they would take their Johns for their tricks. And what I read and what I really researched is she was staying at the Biltmore Hotel.
Yes.
She was staying at the Biltmore Hotel, which is literally right around the corner from the Cecil. And that place, guys, also has a lot of history and a lot of haunted history. It's one of the most haunted hotels in Los Angeles, but we'll definitely do a episode on that.
I know, there's so many.
It's crazy.
We're a hotel podcast now.
Yes, hotel podcast. And then she walks down the street because it was documented that she had left the Biltmore. I think she checked out. She walks to the Cecil. A front desk receptionist sees her walk past the desk. She goes straight into the lobby bar, and then she sits there. She orders a drink, and she leaves with someone. And this is all documented and recorded. Yeah. And of course, she was seen here. Now it's this
and it becomes this whole circus, and her stabbing remains unsolved as well.
Exactly.
And again, just so much bigger than her actual murder is this sort of, and I think we're so used to that now.
Oh, yeah.
The media circus is such a daily part of our lives now.
Oh, it is.
This isn't the 40s when most of the coverage is on the war. Now she's almost one of the first people who's being, celebritized, if I may make up a word, because of something that happened to her.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all very yes.
In the manner, if you Google her death, you see some very, very extremely graphic postmortems.
You cannot unsee that.
And you cannot unsee that. And that's the same thing that happened with Sharon Tate.
Yes.
And it's funny because that's not happening with Elisa Lam.
Right, which is so interesting.
Yeah.
That has so many. So we can definitely transition into that because that's, for me, the creepiest of them. I think it is really the bridge between just the cold hard facts of her death, spoilers, she died, and the sort of supernatural aspect. With some of these, it's very hard to see, they killed themselves, but we don't know why, or they were stabbed and it was unsolved, and there's all this energy. But with her, because of the modern age, because of the footage, it just becomes this big question mark of okay, and even before we started, we were saying, what do you think happened? There's just such an open-ended array of possibilities with Elisa Lam because you bring so much of it that you believe to her video. So if anyone hasn't seen it, you can watch the video footage from the elevator of her last scene.
Yes. It's
minutes, and it's terrifying.
Fucking creepy, because you just Google Elisa Lam elevator video, and it's just a slew of them, and there's a lot of sites that really ran rapid with their observation of it, what happened.
Again, going back to that media circus of, like, now it's a viral video of this woman's final moments, and she's clearly experiencing something. And that blank, that fill in the blank is it otherworldly? Is she having a psychotic break?
Right.
Was she off her meds? Was she being threatened? Like, who knows? Because you can only see such a small corner of the footage. But it's just, whatever is actually happening, she is not present. She is not acting in a way that is, like, you can explain through normal means. And it's so jarring to watch a human go through that, like, otherworldly process of just like, okay, whatever they're seeing is not normal, and she was clearly being traumatized by something, whether it was in her mind or actually happening, who can say. So if you haven't seen the video, I mean, I'm not going to describe it in detail, but basically it's a video of this woman in an elevator, and she's in and out, and she's pushing these buttons, and the door's not closing, and her hands are so spasm and just fluttery, and you can see that she's trying to communicate with someone. She goes out of frame, comes back in. She's like hiding behind the little ledge of the corner. Yeah, she's peeking in, she's peeking out, like as if someone is there, and she's talking to someone as well. And you see her hands just morph. It looks like her fingers are trying to touch her forearms, and it's in a way. Very creepy, because it is that found footage sort of horror movie cliche, but because it's like just elevator footage, not a high def, you can't like see her face, for example, that well. You can't see everything that she's doing, like the small minutia gets lost in the graininess of the footage, which makes it so much more intense. Again, these open-ended questions like, how are her hands moving like this without breaking her wrists? How is she like communicating? Why can't we see her face? It's all very intense. And so that's the last thing that we know, is because we have the footage of it. So then her body is found in just what is the most horrifying kind of circumstances. Oh my gosh, yes. First of all, can we talk about her poor, sweet Canadian parents? Just, you have your daughter abroad. Yeah. She's traveling alone. You're checking in with her literally every day, which I think is the sweetest little thing. Yes. And then you just don't hear from her. And like the good, upright citizens, you call the police immediately. And then like that's kind of it. And she's missing for, I think it's a month. Is that right? Am I making that up? It's close to 19 days, because it was January, I believe it was the 31st that her body was finally found. Okay. No, it was January 31st she goes missing. Oh. That's when her mom has the mama bear instincts, because Elisa always calls her mom every single day. Her mom knows instantly something's wrong. This girl calls me and she didn't call me. Yeah, she'll check in. Nothing. It just breaks my heart. She's calling her daughter. The daughter's cell phone is going straight to voicemail. It's going straight to voicemail. So her second instinct is call the hotel. But her body is soon found February 19th. Oh. So her body's in there for almost like 19 to 20 days. So, and if anyone doesn't know, so her body was actually found on the roof of the hotel in one of the water cisterns that provide the water for the rooms below. So the only reason, so again, she's missing, there's a full-on manhunt, missing persons, all of that. Her parents have come. It's this whole thing. The only reason they find her because of course someone like searched the roof, they didn't think to open the cistern. Right. What happens is that the water pressure in the hotel starts going out, and it gets dark, and the guests are complaining of a smell, and all of a sudden they like start piecing it together, go upstairs to see what's wrong, and her corpse has been floating and decomposing in the main cistern. Yeah. And there are people, we were saying, who have been interviewed. They were showering in this water. They were drinking this water. I'm just like getting like... It could not be more horrifying. I mean, she is the victim, but that is horrifying. It is disgusting.
I was even telling you on, I think it was CNN, there was a footage of this couple from overseas, and you could see in their face that, you know, what happened, like, not only disturbed them, but what they even said to the reporter. They were telling him, yeah, we were bathing in this water of this dead woman, and we were even drinking the water, and the woman goes really into detail of the taste. She said it was like a sickly sweet taste.
That is horrifying.
I'm sorry. I'm just like...
I know.
Gag reflex right there. And I know that this investigation led to a movie being written called Blackwater.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so many pop culture references because I think it was so captivating that this could even happen. Mm-hmm. But, and Blackwater's such a good movie, too.
It is. I know. Who was it? Elizabeth? What's her last name? Oh, my God.
Oh, I'm useless without IMDb.
I know.
If I don't have it open at all times, I'm a waste.
Oh, my God. I can't remember her last name. But, yeah, she did a really great performance. Oh, my God. I can't remember her. She was from Labyrinth. Oh, my God. What was her name? But as we're looking for her name.
I know, yes.
There were theories of Elisa. There were like 2 theories about Elisa Lam, and it was just circulating in a lot of domains. So one of the first theories in the earlier comments about the conclusion of her death is some believe that she was under the influence of some illicit substance, or she was flirting with someone who's not seen in the video. Yes. And perhaps it was even both.
And she was on medication, so away, that's always like people's. As a society, I think we do that. Like, oh, well, they were suffering from bipolar, they were suffering from depression, and then like, as if that makes it acceptable or that they deserved it in some morose way. So yeah, as soon as it came out, and you know, the toxicology report didn't show any of that. So then it's, well, was she off her meds? Was she having a psychotic break? And it's immediate, like, well, you know, she was on medication, so it's fine, which is so mind-blowing to me. Like, what? No, she's still dead. She's still, something horrible still happened to this human being who happened to, yes, struggle with mental illness, but...
She was 115 pounds, and the latch was like 20. They said 20 to 25 pounds. How was this girl, first off, able to take off her clothes, lift the latch, and then, like, submerge herself into this tank? Not only that, when the maintenance worker went up there to the roof to figure out what was going on with the water, he didn't see anything. There was nothing around the tank. So there was no evidence of anyone being there. So what happened to her clothes? Also, what happened to her phone? Her phone ends up missing.
Yes, and even getting on the roof should have been impossible.
Yes.
Because there's essentially one way up to the roof from where she was. And so it should have triggered an alarm. The door should have been locked. It was in full view of like a common space area, not just like another room or something. But someone most likely would have seen someone trying to get into this door. None of that. The alarm didn't get triggered. Somehow the door was unlocked. Nobody sees her, quote unquote. And all of a sudden, again, it starts raising these questions of, well, at the very least, how did she get on the roof? Like, let's just start there. Because it's insane. And then she gets on the roof. How does she open this heavy lid of the cistern? How does she climb up? Because it's not like on the ground. She had to actively try and get in there.
Right.
How? How is she naked? How did it shut on her and she wasn't able to get back out? Like, all of these questions have no answer, in essence, because there's just no real way to know. And again, there's just enough in the toxicology report that it's dismissible. There's not any evidence of defensive wounds or sexual harassment, assault wounds, anything like that. And so all of a sudden it's just like, well, she probably did this to herself, which I find mind-blowing.
Right.
Plausible or possible, but just so baffling at the same time.
This brings me to another, I don't know if you read about this. I'm sure everyone had seen this. This just happened. Literally last year now, but I think it was in October in Chicago, Illinois. Kanika Jenkins was the poor girl that was found in the freezer of a hotel. Ugh. It was a Crowne Plaza hotel in Chicago. This girl goes missing, and then her body soon found in the freezer of the hotel kitchen. Oh. And there's actual, and it parallels with Elisa Lam. There's footage of her. There's footage of her moments before her death. She is staggering down the hotel aisles. She is falling to her knees. She looks pretty inebriated. Like, she is just not coherent. You see her going up the stairs. You see her going down more hallways. She's staggering. No one's around. No one is around. And then you see her. There's a footage of her entering the kitchen. There's a camera in the kitchen.
Sure.
Where is the freaking security? Where is freaking security at this point, especially at the Crown Plaza?
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, I have friends that work security in malls. They are on it. They're on there like 24 hours. Their job is to monitor and to report. That is their job. And no one did anything that night. So this girl staggers through the kitchen. You see her going to another room, but you don't see her entering the fridge. It just cuts right there. And in the toxicology reports, they don't see anything. They only see a very, what they say, a prescription dosage of a medication that she was taking for seizures. And that her friends at the party said that she had one cup, I think it was a glass of wine, or she had a cup of mixed alcohol. And she was very much a lightweight, so she has this cup in mixture with her medication. She is completely gone, and no one knows what happens after that. Like, she just stumbles out of the room, and no one, like, great friends, they don't check on their girlfriend, you know, once again. And and why is it like this, that hotels is the perfect setting for this, you know? Buddy system. Yes. That's all I have to say. Yes. And it's terrible. And there was another suggestion too. They felt that she may have been under severe psychedelics. And even one person pointed out that her next stop was Santa Cruz. After Los Angeles, she was supposed to go to Santa Cruz, which is a city that is renowned for heavy drug use. So that was something that was brought into light. But then again, they didn't see anything in her system.
Well, and so this is the thing too, is that there was a woman, I have her name, Katie Orphan, and she owns a bookstore across from where the hotel is.
The Last Bookstore, right?
Is that what it's called?
I think it was, because I
didn't write down the name of the bookstore.
Because I know that that's the bookstore. Like, I think that's right around the corner.
It must be, yeah. It's right
I've been there, and if you guys ever visited Los Angeles,
it's so cute.
You have to. It's amazing. It is beautiful. Even if you're not a bookworm, you just got to go and venture through it. It's so awesome.
And so this woman saw, again, like, last person to see them, and nothing out of the blue. And
she looked fine.
Yeah,
she looked
completely
normal.
fine, completely personable, chatting. Again, like, mental illness can have different levels, and if she was on some kind of psychedelic, obviously she wouldn't be showing those signs in the bookstore.
No.
But for the last person to see you, to remember you because of the very, like, extended conversation you have, she was like a huge book person, so for her to be at the bookstore multiple days in a row so that you're remembering her, and then on top of that, for it to be completely affable, no weird red flags going up, and then the next thing that's happening is she's having a full-on, I mean, it's pure conjecture at this point, but it just seems so plausible that this person who's susceptible to the energy around her would be affected in a way that's so unexplainable. You know what I mean? Obviously, that's completely just my opinion, but if she is the kind of person who's dealing with mental illness, who possibly was on mood and mind-altering substances, all of a sudden you're doing those things in a place which is so steeped in violent and crazy history. It is just this perfect storm of chaos, essentially.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It is. And I mean, it was really, really sad, just the outcome of it.
I know.
You know, and it's still unsolved.
And so that's the thing is, you know, the aftermath of this, I think we always sort of touch on that because these things ripple through. Nothing is just contained. And so her poor parents, they, you know, in their grief, I assume, it just seems like that they try and sue the city and the hotel. And I think that's just that, again, they're clearly so protective.
They need to.
And it was dismissed because at the end of the day, like, there's not that much to go on. There's not probable cause. There's not negligence that they can prove. And so their case is dismissed, which I just find so heartbreaking. Like, they don't even get the closure in any sense. Not that I think that, you know, we do live in a lawsuit culture, which I don't always agree with, but for these, like, grieving parents, I just find it so heartbreaking.
It is. It really is. Like, they're trying to find some
Excuse me.
form of solace and closure, and deep down inside, there's none.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And, you know, here's like a little story time. I have a friend who's into the paranormal as well, and she stayed at this hotel.
She stayed braver than me.
Well, she stayed with 3 of her other friends, which is now known as Stay on Main. It's no longer called the Cecil. It's Stay on Main, but it's still forever. It's like a tattoo that will never come off.
And it's being renovated, and they're really trying to do it. But
it's renovated. The rooms are still tiny. She said going into the hotel, you just feel like this heavyweight. And it's because also you know the history.
Sure.
Going in, you also know the history. And, you know, she's going in there, not to mention, she ends up talking to one of the security guys. So this hotel has upped the ante just a smidge
yeah, right.
in security. So there's a team of security men. They're dressed in suits. They're on it, apparently, because she was there with a camera. She was kind of recording herself, like, I'm in the hotel. And they, at one point, stop her. Wow. But it's so funny how immediate they are to see, you know, someone recording the hotel. But when they see someone in a recording or through cameras, that they don't act freaking fast. Yeah. So she goes to talking to the dude, asks the guy, can you take us up to the roof? The guy's like, yeah.
Whoa.
So it's just, she's like documenting this, by the way. And she goes onto the roof. So the roof, you need like key access. And she saw the water tank. And she was like, oh my God, this was like completely morbid. She goes further to talking with the security guard. And the guy's like, yeah, you know, we're trying to create a different face for the hotel. But, you know, we get these people like you guys that come in and they just want to experience the history. And they're trying to cover it up. You know, they're trying to move forward. And then he goes on to telling her, oh, yeah, you know, not too long ago, a guest called us to complain that someone was sleeping outside of their room. So they went to go investigate, and it turned out that it was a corpse, that someone from Skid Row had made their way by the fire escape and had OD'd and died. And it was, once again,
oh my God.
You know, this is terrible history of Skid Row.
Yeah.
This is what happens. And then she asks him, well, I see cameras. How come you guys didn't see this person stumbling into the area here by the fire escape, first off, and then didn't notice that this guy was not waking up? Oh, because the cameras there are faux cameras.
Oh my God. What?
The fuck?
After all that's happened, you don't ever
spend the fucking extra $2-3 grand. I don't know how much is a security system. Holy
who knows? But I mean,
shit. I mean, they're faux cameras. There's 2 or 3 of them in the back by the fire escape. They're all faux.
That's
insanity. They're dummy cameras to deter people from coming in. Well, it sure didn't deter this person from coming in and ODing, you know. And oh my God. Once again, this is the history and the nature of not only the hotel, but also the fucking location.
Yeah. I think that we keep touching on it, but it's very odd. We sort of take it for granted living here, but there are so many, like, things that are happening in LA, even today, that are, like, almost fully realized characters in these stories. Like, the gentrification problem in downtown specifically.
Oh, yes.
Is no joke. And we sort of, you know, it's covered in the news, and we kind of brush it off. We kind of move further out into the valley, and then you kind of think it's over. But for the people who can't get out and are living in Skid Row, not just visiting, not just stopping by, but who this is their life, it is a full-blown problem. And it becomes such a vital element to this story, to the history of this area. When you think about it, it's like, it really is almost like a fully realized character. There's almost no other way to say it. It's just so crazy to me.
Do you want to know what's really fucked up?
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. It gets weird.
It gets weird.
In 2005, Skid Row was being highly observed by police force, by higher ups, because people were complaining of patient dumping.
Oh.
That these homeless individuals were being sent to the hospital. No one would claim them. No, they didn't have a name. They didn't have anything. So these specific hospitals around downtown would then dump the patients off of Skid Row.
That is so heartbreaking.
So they would place them on the gurney, take them out of the hospital, and just, dump them there.
That is insane.
Pick them up from the gurney and just place them on the sidewalk. And it was a big, big case in 2005. Even some police members from the department were involved in this too. Wow. So it was a very, 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 very large investigation. I mean, the city acted fast with this. They were like, you can't fucking do this. No. Like, this is insane. You're dumping people on the sidewalk here, people that can't even walk. And let alone take care of themselves. They were just dumping them there. It's just, here we go again, you know? These are layers being built, being, established.
That is...
It doesn't seem like it's
mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
No, I mean... And so that's the thing is, they're doing all this renovation on the hotel, and they're keeping the lobby, but, updating the rooms. And, like you're saying, it's like you're trying to cover a tattoo. You're trying to give it all a facelift. That history will not be erased. The ripples cannot be undone. And
not only did we have the deaths, but we had how many? Two serial killers, right?
Right. I mean, we barely even touched on that. But again, there's just so many. Good grief. Talk about layers.
We welcome everyone.
I know.
We welcome everyone.
Send me your crazy.
Send me your crazies.
So two pretty famous, one very famous serial killer.
Holy
and then,
shit, yes.
So in the 80s, Richard Ramirez, a.k.a. the Night Stalker.
Son of a bitch.
Which, if you don't know who, I don't know. I mean, I assume if you're listening to this podcast, you have a certain proclivity for the kinds of stories we're talking about. So if you haven't heard of him, Google him immediately, because it is such a fascinating story, and I'm sure we'll talk more in depth about it. But he stays at the Cecil. Of all the places, you couldn't stay at a Ramada Inn or something. Come on. It's at this point, it's absurd. And
I don't think he had the points.
No, he really did not. He let that one slide. Go figure. And, with his story, so much of his killings happened further outside of the city.
Yeah, northern.
So he just happened to be staying there for a couple weeks.
And I think he was even killing while staying there. It was his office,
Yeah, and so he for sure, again, all of this, I mean, I'm almost speechless. Just all of this energy being drugged into the hotel.
Yes.
As he's staying there, but also killing people in the air. It's just so crazy. And so once he's then later caught, and he's so notorious. I mean, he's a heavy hitter in terms of the serial killer notoriety. I think it does. It kind of spawns that sort of weird obsession in a sense. And so another, I would say less famous serial killer, probably just because he's from Australia. And so he's maybe not as well known in this area. But again, if you follow this kind of thing, you probably have heard of him, whose name I can now not find because there it is, Jack Unterwenger.
Unterwenger.
Yes.
If we butchered it, no pun intended.
Well, he killed people, so it's fine.
Bad fucking pun.
He killed people. He doesn't get his name said correctly.
Yes, done.
But he stays there in the 90s, and the speculation is that he probably did it because he knew that Richard Ramirez had stayed there. And again, most of his killings were in Australia, but he most likely, unproven, but there's a couple killings that are probably to his credit, essentially, while he's staying at the Cecil. It's ridiculous.
It is. And it was stated, too, that the reason why he was staying there, you're not going to believe this, he was a true crime writer.
Right.
On top of everything. So he goes to the hotel and he stays there to write, a story about the hotel and ends up being a story.
And then strangles 3 prostitutes.
I know.
It's crazy.
It was the perfect setting for him,
What a mess.
I know. And Richard Ramirez, that is the craziest one.
Yes.
Holy crap. There's even a statement that someone had seen him in the back of the hotel because he would after he would do his killing spree, come back late at night into the hotel through the back entrance.
Oh.
Once again, where are the fucking cameras?
Close the back entrance. Just close it up.
Lock it up.
That
Jesus
is
Christ.
not-
Buy more security cameras. Oh my God. But at this time, this was the 80s, so this was the deadliest decade, and Richard Ramirez was making his mark, and he was found taking off bloody clothes in the back entrance. There was this transient that noticed him taking off clothes that were covered in blood, and he would dump them in the hotel dumpster.
Oh my goodness. And just, again, no one believes.
No one believes.
You're homeless, your word is not valued.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like, it's so mind-blowing that he was able to just saunter on in, covered in blood, and like, okay, this is ridiculous. Sure. And again, it just goes back to that in that area, that is probably not even the weirdest thing that you would have seen that day. So just carry on, bloody sir. Like, that's so crazy.
And I want to say, I think it was 5 or 6 years after that, in 1988, the body of 32-year-old, it was a nursing student or nurse, was discovered by her brother in a Huntington Beach house. And she shared it with her boyfriend, who was Robert Sullivan. And it turned out that Craig had been brutally stabbed multiple times, and the police began to suspect Sullivan, her boyfriend, who was responsible for the murder. When he failed to return home to the house, he and his girlfriend were sharing at the time for 7 years. And more than 2 months later, on September 6th, this was like probably 3 months after the murder happened, they find out that Sullivan was living there.
Whoa.
They arrest him and they charged him with the murder of Craig, making him yet another person who sought refuge.
Oh my goodness.
It's like,
so
killed somebody? Come over here.
Come on over.
Suicide? We got you covered.
That is their new slogan. They don't
Water
know it
pressure?
Yet.
Not that great.
Not that great. And really dark.
And really dark.
Oh.
Sickly sweet. I can't.
Oh, no, we went back.
We went back. We cannot go back.
Don't.
And then we also, before the 80s, we skipped on this. And this, once again, in the 1970s, we had the Skid Row slasher.
Yes.
Motherfucker. Damn it. It's like this. It just keeps on spawning. So Vaughn Greenwood is convicted in Hollywood. They finally catch this SOB. The Skid Row slasher, guys, Google him.
Yes.
That's all I have to say. I think there is even a made-for-TV movie written about him, but this guy was a piece of work in the way that he murdered his victims. He slashed the throats of his victims, drank their blood, disposed of their bodies by covering them up with salt as his calling card. He would leave them out in the open for cops to discover them or people to discover them. But his main calling card was slashing their throats and sprinkling them with salt.
What is the salt in reference to, or why?
They don't know.
That is terrifying.
They don't know. It was just a sick way of marking, his murder. This is how he murders. This is how he's going to be remembered.
Card, like
exactly. So it was a big murdering spree and goes on for several years. They finally put a bait out for him in Hollywood. I think they're onto him at this point in the late 70s. He's in Hollywood. They have an undercover cop who I guess is associated with him, and he's bait. And Greenwood tries to kill him, and fortunately, he gets caught. He gets caught in the act. They arrest him. They sentence him either to life, or I think they even gave him the death penalty, or he was being tried for the death penalty, or got life. But it was a big ordeal, and he was, just hunting up and down Skid Row.
Yeah.
So guys, if you come to Los Angeles, avoid it.
Do not
it's just not even better.
Well, that's what we had sort of talked a little bit about before we started with the Elisa Lam case. There is marketing at play when you come and visit Los Angeles and Hollywood specifically, and you have to be aware of that you are being sold a version of Hollywood that is, in my opinion, not a complete picture. You're watching and you're seeing Hollywood Boulevard during the red carpet at the Oscars, and it looks so pristine and so glamorous, and all these celebrities are there, and that is not what it looks like 364 other days of the year.
It's true.
And I think it's the same thing with this area downtown. I was just downtown for Ciclavia, which is such a fun event.
I do Ciclavia.
I love it.
My husband and I, we do it twice or 3 times a year.
It's so cool.
What is Ciclavia, Bryce? Because people are like, what is this?
It's like a bike trail, essentially, that you can... It's like a bike parade. Mm-hmm. And it's this huge event, and there's vendors everywhere, and all these like businesses have like
free,
special. And
it's a great way to venture the city on foot or on bike or on your board.
Yeah, and it's a good way to. It's through the
amazing.
metro, and so you can kind of see the like new. And we have an upcoming like bike rental program that you can like travel around the city with the bikes that they have through the metro, and it's just a really cool thing. They do one in North Hollywood, they do one downtown. Yes. I didn't know there was a bunch more.
There are a bunch. We did the biggest one they had was downtown to the sea, which was downtown LA, and you go from downtown LA all the way to Santa Monica Pier. It was amazing. It was so cool. Beautiful.
But that is not what downtown looks like normally. And so you have this traveler. She's by herself. Mm-hmm. She's, seeing the cities that you want to see. Right. It is cool to be downtown. I love downtown.
Oh, I love it too.
You just have to be smart. You just have to be aware that they're...
Walk with the purpose.
Yeah.
You can automatically fish out a tourist.
Oh, 100%.
And Elisa fit the description to the T. She
also,
really...
Your husband just walked by and gave me a little mini heart attack. I thought we were being serial killed. That's so funny. Okay, good. Ooh,
he's in the next bedroom. He's playing his video games.
That's so funny. I like full on was like, this is it. We're dying.
Now you're on the edge.
I love it. All this Skid Row talk has got me on the edge.
I know. Now you're like, Skid Row. I'm not even going to drive by there. Maybe. Ever. I don't know. Let's do something, Bryce.
Okay. Great.
Let's go on our phones. We got our phones on standby here. Mm-hmm. I want you... Let's read the Yelp reviews of the stay on Main.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's 100%.
I want to see, okay, let's pretend we're tourists.
Yes.
And let's go on here. We're going to go on here on Yelp. I'm going to open up my Yelp app right here. And just an FYI, I already Googled the actress. I feel like, God, I'm going through like a senior moment right now. It was Jennifer Connelly.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Holy shit. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s. Labyrinth. Come on, man.
Oh, I should have known it when you said that.
I know. I'm like, Elizabeth? No, I was thinking Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia. All right. Stay on Main. All right. We're tourists. We're going to Los Angeles.
To the place.
And we want to see some stars.
Oh, always.
Okay. So here... it's got 2 stars.
Oof.
It's got 2 stars. And there's $1 sign. So I'm going to read one of the reviews here. This one looks promising.
Oh,
all right. This was 2 months ago. And I'm going to open this up here. 1 star.
Oof.
I was unaware of Hotel Cecil's history prior to booking my stay here.
How?
With 2 of my girlfriends back in 2015. I'm so glad to see that it's closed. We were 19 at the time and settled in for whatever was cheap and convenient.
Yep.
You get what you pay for. I'm just going to say that. On the first day we arrived, I realized that something just didn't feel right. I had an eerie feeling from this hotel, and I didn't understand why. I didn't feel safe. I got chills every time I would take the elevator between floors. My friends never said anything, so I just kept quiet. 3 nights into our stay, I was up at around 2 a.m. booking our Disneyland tickets online, and my friends had both fallen asleep, and I was just about to close the browser when I heard knocking on our door. 2 knocks. I froze. It was dead quiet at this time. I am very attentive and was puzzled because I hadn't heard any footsteps approaching prior to the knocking. I listened for any kind of movement outside of the door. Nothing. I looked over to my friends and they are still sleeping. Another knock. I slowly got out of bed and got down on all 4s on the dingy hotel floor to peek under the door. Girl, I hope you had some antibacterial on you. I probably had a decent 4 hours of sleep that night because I was so scared. The next morning, I used one of the computers in the lobby to look up the hotel's history. I learned about the most recent death of Elisa Lam, who went to university in my city and all the past murders and deaths that had taken place in this very hotel. I stayed quiet for the rest of the trip and was so relieved when we were finally able to check out. It's creepy and outright filthy. Spend the extra money staying at a place you actually feel safe at. Avoid it at all costs. I wish I could give this place a half a star. I would never go back.
Oof.
Holy
Scathing.
shit. Heather. And everything is 1 star. Everything is 1 star. This place is closed now. That's what everyone's saying. I even remember passing by that place during one of the ciclavias.
Right.
And I noticed, like, it looks like it's still under construction.
Yeah.
They're still trying to remodel it or something. And of
As
course,
far as I understood, and I could be mistaken, I certainly have been known to make mistakes. But I was under the impression that it was being renovated under a new name and that they're keeping the lobby because it is technically a historical landmark, but that the rooms themselves are being updated.
Right.
Again, a facelift will not cover everything that's happened there, but I think they are trying to, like, rebrand.
don't spend the money.
Oof.
Spend the money on a security system, please.
I know.
Fucking more cameras. Hire more security. Jesus Christ.
Oof, that's crazy.
So we're going to move into the meatier part of this episode. We're going to talk about the paranormal aftermath. Y'all have been waiting for this. So let me give you a little antidote. Hotels are more likely to be the scene of accidents, suicides, and even murders because of their transient population. You don't know who's coming in. You don't know who's coming out if they ever do come out. Energy and the attraction of this building attracted individuals with mental health problems who were down on their luck or, down on life. So we're going to go into the rooms, what people have felt in these rooms. We don't know exactly what room Elisa Lam was staying in, but from what I read in reports, she stayed in 2 rooms. The first, in the beginning, she was staying in a hostel-like setting because the way the hotel was built, there's some floors that have private rooms with their own bathrooms. And there's some floors that have a communal bathroom. So you're sharing a room with, other people traveling from everywhere. And that was her setting.
Sure.
Based on what people were describing of Elisa that, they shared a room with, they were saying that she was acting a little odd at some points. And then Elisa, it was also documented by the front desk that she requested to be moved to another room because she was feeling anxiety. She was, just not trusting the people that were in that room. Sure. She just didn't feel comfortable. So they moved her into another room. They moved her into a private room. So they said that Elisa was staying on the 12th floor in the beginning, which are the hostel rooms. And then she ended up being on the 14th floor.
Oh, man.
So the 14th floor has a lot of history. And I'll tell you why. Room 1402 is where Jock Ottenweger, who gives a fuck how you pronounce his last name, he's a murderer, who was the Austrian journalist who wrote true crime novels and reports and ended up killing those prostitutes. He killed them in room 1402. You have room 1419, and that is Richard Ramirez's room.
I didn't realize it was floor specific. That's insane.
When people go on this floor, they feel like they're being watched. They feel like they're being followed. There's been documentation from mediums that have traveled to this hotel that they feel a huge sense of dread. Oof. They feel a huge sense of black energy, like just negativity. And you feel this heavy, heavy weight when you go on the 14th floor. Yeah. So people who have stayed in 1419 say that they sense that they're being watched, that the closet doors open and close by themselves. Nope. One person even documented waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning feeling as though someone was on top of him, choking him. He didn't see any...
Which is how he was strangling the sex workers. Like, oh my goodness.
Oh, no, that was Jack.
Yeah, sorry. I said he, and I just assumed everyone would know what I was talking about.
But in 1402, it's the same thing.
That's terrifying.
People feel a sense of anxiety in 1402, but in 1419, they just feel this heavy negativity in that room. 1402, yes, is Jack's room. They feel like they can't breathe. Oh my goodness. They get a cold sweat. One person has documented saying that she felt as though she was being watched and she was feeling very anxious, like somebody was coming. She was like, I don't know, I just kept on checking outside my door. I just felt like someone was coming out to get me, and, you know, there's no one outside.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's insane. And then in 2013, we have a ghost picture that comes out and the media takes notice of it. So this poor kid visiting Los Angeles from Riverside is walking by the Cecil Hotel. You know, he's like, oh, let's go see the Suicide Hotel, and he soon regrets it.
Of course.
So I'm going to show you this picture, and I'll post it on our website, guys. It's really intense, and this was, on ABC News. This poor kid takes a picture of this window because he notices a figure sitting outside of the window, as though he's looking like he's ready to jump off the 7th floor. So here's the picture of the ghost at the Cecil.
Oh my, no.
Yeah. It looks like a man jumping out of the window. You see, you could tell like it's a person.
Yeah.
He's
with like
transparent.
Jeans
Yes.
and a jacket. Like, oh my goodness, that is terrifying.
Yeah. So after taking this picture, the poor kid, like, he started having nightmares. He couldn't sleep. It costed him, like, nights worth of rest. And he just said that something made him look up. And he just noticed that there's this, person looking like he was about to jump out of the window. So he takes this picture and he documents it.
Oh, my goodness.
It's really, really insane. It's not really documented which room the Black Dahlia was probably working her tricks in.
Sure.
A lot of people believe that it was the 14th floor, but that's where a lot of the activity happens. And then you have people that are coming into the light saying, well, we took the elevator and the elevator, just felt really, really off. And I just have this feeling that if you're walking into a place like this, knowing the history, you're going to instantly come up with all these feelings and
I almost
emotions.
believe people who are like a little bit skeptical and then I'm more apt to believe them than, I think you can convince yourself of anything. So if you go into it knowing that the elevator is, quote, weird, or you're gonna find things that most likely will fit your narrative, it's the people that are passing by unsuspecting, that didn't know the history. Those I'm more prone to believe because it's just so easy to convince yourself, but it's so hard to convince yourself out of what you've seen. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's so crazy.
It's really crazy. And I'm going to step away from this light, but just a little story time. I'm originally from New Orleans. I come from another haunted city. And
they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. But here it's very thick. And in that city, it's a lot of stories. And I have a lot of stories to tell of that city. But one story in particular, it was back in 2008. My sister and I go to this place off of Carrollton Avenue. And it's notorious for the graveyards. But there's this one structure in particular. It's called the mortuary, and it's the mortuary because back in the 1800s it was that.
Oh wow. So
during before Katrina, the mortuary was supposed to be turned into a spa and salon, and then Katrina hit. All the process of construction stopped. It was at a halt.
Sure.
They never came back, but one of the reasons that they never came back to deal with that is because the building was refuge for a lot of transients and homeless people. So my sister and I, we go to this place called the mortuary, and at the time it was called the Haunted Museum. And it was bought by, yes. Oh, baby, it gets better. So it was bought by a couple from Atlanta, and I met them. They're a young couple. One woman, the woman who was, the girlfriend of the guy that owned it, was a medium.
Oh, wow.
And he owned a bookstore in Atlanta. They moved to New Orleans. They buy this building. They turn it into a haunted museum of actual ghost hunting equipment with dolls that they collected from Anne Rice. They're there. There's the second level, which they created a couple of rooms, one being the waking room where, wakes would happen, a seance room with a seance table, and they had a humongous room of Ouija boards, of antique Ouija boards and planchettes. So
please, no.
Here's the thing. My sister and I, we knew of the back history that this was a mortuary. And at times they did turn it into a haunted fun house, which they kept that part of the building open because it was also for a study of fear. Oof. So they kept the basement open with all the attractions to study fear. So I'm
very afraid.
So we go there, we pay the fee, and the two docents are like, okay, so what we do, we don't tell you the history of the place. We want you to go and experience it yourself. Sure. We want you to take notes. Great plan, because I don't know anything.
Yeah, I love that.
We go to the second floor, and that's when shit starts to hit the fan. My sister and I, like I said in the first episode, we carry like a sixth sense. All of us do. We have like some form of empath sensibility. Sure. For my sister, she feels. She has headaches. She gets ringing in her ears. She at times, even gets nosebleeds. She's sensitive in that way, to where I see and I smell. I don't know, my smell comes into play. Yeah. It's weird. It's so crazy. So we go into the seance room. My sister immediately gets a migraine.
Oh, no.
And then we go into the room with the Ouija boards, and it gets really bad. She's like, I can't be here. And then I then soon start to smell what smells like cigarettes. And I'm thinking, it's probably the people that, were walking through, they probably smoke. So we go straight into another room, and then all of a sudden, like her migraine stops, starts to ease a bit. And then I start to smell what smells like lavender and lilac. I'm like, what's a Glade plug-in around here? Like, what is that? I've never smelled that before. I look out the window and I see like what looks like this fabric floating by. And I'm thinking, it's just a flag. And the homes in New Orleans, a lot of times the owners have flags, outside of their house just to pretty much, explain to everyone else like where they come from or represent a season or celebrate Mardi Gras. They have them there. And I thought, okay, maybe the house has that. We go down, we speak with the docent, and we tell him, okay, this is what we experience. And he's like, that's amazing. So my sister ended up feeling those migraines because when they were renovating the house, the mortuary, they found the body of a young transient who had died of a brain hemorrhage.
Whoa.
And what my sister most likely felt was probably her energy.
Oh, my goodness.
And her nickname was Peanut. She was known around the area. And that's how they were able to easily identify her. Around Peanut were empty packs of Marlboro Reds.
Whoa.
Which was the smell of cigarettes that I was sensing. Can't you believe that?
Oh, my goodness.
I tell him about my experience, and he said, oh, yeah, that's where the woman in white is located. Her room is the door that's locked. No one can go in her room. That's what we agreed with her. I was like, well, you talked.
That's what we agreed.
We agreed with her. Like, you have tea with the woman in white, right? It's she is known to. She makes her presence known when you start to smell her perfume, which is a lilac lavender scent.
Oh my goodness.
She's in white. There's no flags. There were no flags outside because I told him, do you guys have flags outside? He's like, no, that you probably saw her walking by. Son of a bitch. Okay.
Oh, my God.
So she is mainly felt in that room. And he was even telling me, my wife is always in constant communication with her because she's a medium. And before we bought this house, she was in communication with her. So that's why they have this weird agreement. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Isn't that insane? But, it just, you go into a place not knowing the history and the stories, and you just, just take it for what it is.
Yeah.
But these people are going in knowing the history, and they're probably, creating such a fluff with it, But a lot of people have felt like a sense of dread and negativity.
Yeah. I mean, can I just say briefly that you could not get me to go into a room full of Ouija boards ever.
We freaked out.
That is too much.
The way it was set up, it was crazy. And I like the design of it.
Sure.
I think it's a beautiful design.
Yeah, it's that cool, like, early circus-y kind of feel,
Yes.
like the 1910s. I like it.
Yes, the fonts, everything, the planchette, it comes with accessories. Yes, but I mean, even like the antique ones were like scary looking.
I can't. And
like,
I know
we
that's
froze when we walked into the room.
it's so, like, silly maybe or superstitious, and, like, I do not fuck with that. It freaks me out. Ouija board specifically really terrifies me.
Oh, no, they do. Like, there have been reports of people who have unknowingly played with them. Like, they just don't take it seriously and they regret it. You have to learn how to respect who you're who you're communicating with and learn how to end the session. That's what gets a lot of people in trouble. They don't know how to use it. They disrespect it. You don't know what you're bringing in, and then people don't close that door. They don't know how to close. They don't know how to end the session. And I know that there is a safer way of using those things, but I avoid it. I just avoid. You don't know what you're inviting in.
Yeah.
You don't. Paranormal investigators have stayed there, and the EVPs that they've collected, especially after Elisa Lam was found dead in the tank. They keep on coming up with two voices, one of a young woman who is always being heard saying, "We were killed." Then another one was recorded saying, "Taken," "up," "down," "peace." One paranormal investigator stated that he believes that Lisa Lam was killed, that someone may have been following her, probably someone in the hotel. And that all she wants was, like, she was found up in the tank, and now she was probably, laid to rest, and she wants peace. And I think it's, like, all these people trying to communicate with her.
Sure.
Part of her is there. She's like, dude, I just want peace. Like, leave me alone. I just want peace.
Yeah. Oh.
The other one of the gentlemen is very negative. They believe that it's the spirit of Richard Ramirez or other victims. But it's a very angry voice that says, "Get out. Don't turn on the light."
Oh, no.
Another one is saying, "Leave." And another one is saying, "Get the fuck out."
Ooh.
Yeah. So there's been speculations, too, in relation to Elisa Lam's death, that it was possession.
Yeah.
That, was it Richard Ramirez coming back from the dead? Was she seeing the spirit of Richard Ramirez? Was there some possession that occurred? But in my opinion, I don't think so. I don't think it was, because he was such a violent man.
Sure.
He would have been very messy. I felt like if it was a possession, she would have slit her throat. She would have done something a little more, way more graphic and horrible. Yeah. But who knows? Who knows at this point?
Yeah. So that you don't think it was a possession?
I personally don't. I feel like it was, like you said before, we talked about this before recording, and we'll touch on it again. I feel like it was someone from the inside.
Yes.
I think
that's where I fall a little more too.
Yeah. Like I said, if it was Richard Ramirez that came back from the dead and she saw his ghost, I feel that it could have been something way more violent.
I think what we can see on the elevator footage is otherworldly. I think that portion of her evening, there is something happening that is not normal and that is not explainable by normal methods. I think you talked about it, especially like the way her hands move is not anatomically what you would be able to do. I think she is seeing something. I think that then was met with someone who took advantage of that situation, whether they weren't open to the paranormal that she was experiencing and just took advantage of her break with reality. That seems more plausible to me, because I agree. I think had there been some kind of violent marks on her, it would maybe lead more in line with her actions in the elevator. I think that in the elevator, she is for sure experiencing something that only she was able to see, and that situation was taken advantage of by someone who was able to get her to that roof.
Exactly.
Terrifying.
Exactly. That, you just took the words out of my mouth.
Terrifying.
I believe in that.
Yeah.
What you just said, I was just going to say, what was your conclusion? You just pretty much stated it. And that's how I feel. That's how I feel. There's so many people working in that hotel. Mm-hmm. There are so many people, and you just don't know who's walking in and out.
And there's no cameras to show us, so.
There's not a lot of footage.
Come on.
Well, that was another thing, too, like that they noticed about the media when they were going back and forth with the footage. They noticed that there was a jump edit, that something was cut out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
scary. Like, you just never know, like, what the media can even curate.
And I feel like that is such a, we'll never know the answer to so many of these types of stories. There's just too many unexplainable things. But I feel like where I fall in a grander spectrum is somewhere in the balance between, I don't know that I ever believe that it's fully otherworldly. Do you know what I mean? There's so many things that I think we can't explain, or that logic does kind of raise too many questions. But then there's just enough of that unknowable essence that it's like, but there's that meeting of the paranormal, and the real world is also full of terrible people who will do bad things as well. And they don't need the help of a ghost or a demon or a Ouija board. They themselves are the problem. And I think it's that intersection.
Right.
That's sort of where I fall on the spectrum of like, there are things that we can't explain that are then merged with things that we can. And that is so intriguing and terrifying to me.
I agree.
Ugh.
I agree. But there's also, those people with that energy, they can always stay and always manifest.
Yes.
And, we'll go into great detail about that when we talk about our job.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm sure everybody's like, what is going on at their job? Like, there's a lot of shit that has happened on that property dating decades and decades and decades back. Mm-hmm. And we're going to definitely cover it because there's a lot to cover with that story. Yes. But that will be later on in our podcast series, guys. But shall we take it to a close now?
Let's take it to a close.
This was intense.
Sufficiently terrified.
I know. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Holly Weird Paranormal. Don't drink the water.
Ever.
Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. We're also on Intune. We just got approved. I know. I mean, this is the whole process of starting a podcast. Like, you got to wait several days for these sites to pretty much validate, but we're on there. You can find us, stalk us at Facebook and Instagram at Holly Weird Paranormal, and on Twitter at HWP Podcast. All right, that's it. Bye, guys.